I never thought I would be excited to read sad books, but here we are. I pulled out 3 of what I think are going to be the saddest books I own. These are 3 books that I've heard so many people talk about and so many people describe them as sad books. So I thought it'd be fun to read them together. Hopefully my heart is not broken by the end of this video, but we're actually going to start with Girl in Pieces. And like I said, all I know about these books is that they're sad. So I'm going into these pretty much blind. So let's go start our first sad book. I actually got to page 67 last night. I kind of thought I would read more than I did, but that's okay. Especially because the way that the book is set up are really short chapters, at least so far they have been very short chapters, which I feel like when a book has short chapters, it just makes it so much faster to read. So I thought I would get more into it, but I haven't, but that's okay. We have all the time in the world to read, so there's no rush. Anyways, like I was trying to say, I keep making parallels between this book and A Little Life, which I really enjoyed A Little Life, but I did have to take multiple breaks while reading A Little Life. A Little Life is very deeply emotional, which is why I had to take multiple breaks while reading it. But also, before I get too deep into this video, I did want to say for all 3 of these books that I'm going to read, I would just check the trigger warnings for all of them before you go into them. And I'm saying that because this one, like A Little Life, both deeply emotional and both cover topics that I just think would be very triggering for some people, especially because you're like in their point of view, which I am just, when I'm reading this book, I'm like, I don't know how the author manages to write this. Like, I don't know. It's just, I think it would be so hard because I find it hard just to read it. I don't know if anyone else gets this, but like sometimes when things like make me very uncomfortable, I'm thinking like medical things, or like I'm watching a show where like there's a lot of blood and gore, my hands feel weak. Like they start to feel weak, and like my body almost like reacts to those things by making me feel weak. Like I feel like I can't do anything with my hands. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think that will only make sense if you get that way as well. But I'm getting that feeling with this book, and I honestly feel like maybe I might have to read this book a little bit slower like I did with A Little Life, but obviously it's a lot shorter than A Little Life, and like I said, because the chapters are pretty short, it does read a bit faster, so I don't know how that will actually play out. But before I yap for way too long, let me actually tell you what this book is about. So basically you have our main character, and in the beginning of the book they actually call her Silent Sue like a lot, and then all of a sudden she's like, my name is not Sue, because in her monologue, we don't know her name at the very beginning. So I just thought that that was funny. Obviously, if you read the back of the book, it says her name, but I think she's actually in a psych ward in a hospital, I believe, and she ends up there because she actually gets found bleeding out just sitting on the hospital grounds, like wrapped in a blanket. Actually a crazy story. Like she easily could have died if no one found her, and probably would have. Anyways, there's a lot of topics of mental health and things like that in this book. That's why I say it's very hard for me to read, and I also just can't imagine how the author wrote this. Like, I don't know, I feel like that would be so hard to do. So honestly, props to her already. I am really enjoying it, but at the same time I'm like a little bit nervous because it is very heavy, it is very deeply emotional, and I keep comparing it to A Little Life, which might be a bit bad just because I liked A Little Life so much. Honestly, I never talk about that book and I never recommend it because of how deeply emotional it is. Like that book takes you on a roller coaster. It will drag you through the mud, and it's not sorry that it's doing that to you. You know what I mean? Like, it was beautiful, but it was heartbreaking, and literally I think heartbreaking is an understatement. Like my heart was shattered in 1,000 million pieces after that book, and I don't think I've ever recovered. So anyway, I kind of hope this book isn't like that. And we collectively agreed to ignore my hair because I haven't done it today because it desperately needs to be washed. But hello, it has been a while since I last updated, mostly because I am dragging my feet to get through this book just because I'm scared for the sad parts, especially because there's parts in this book that I find hard to read. So I'm almost dreading those parts of the book to happen, but I've only made it to page 144 and things have gone a different way than I expected them to. And I also feel like I have no prediction on what's gonna happen next. Like I literally feel like the story could go anywhere. And maybe that's also part of the problem because I'm worried about where it's gonna go. I don't know, but I am gonna sit down and read at least for a little bit, and hopefully I get more of a handle on how I feel about this book. Right now I am just very on the fence. I'm not really sure. Am I sitting in the exact same spot I was sitting in when I last updated you? I think I am, but I've gotten pretty far into this book. I'm now on page 286, and I was eating up the middle part of this book, but I'm back to being so scared about what's going to happen next. Her life is so intense, and I feel like we have just scratched the surface of it to the point where I feel like things are going to fall fall apart and get very sad, and I wanted to update you before we get to that point. Also, when I was reading last night, I put the book down for like less than 5 minutes just to go to the bathroom, and when I went to pick the book back up, I realized it felt like I was inside the book or like I was watching a TV show, and I feel like that only happens to me when I'm really liking the book, so that's a good sign. I feel like my updates have been all over the place for this book because my feelings towards this book have been all over the place. But hopefully my thoughts will settle a little bit more as we continue on into this book, because I feel like the very beginning of the book I didn't really like it, mostly because of the anticipation of it being very sad. But now that I'm like reading it, I'm getting into it and I'm enjoying it a lot more. Specifically in the middle, I feel like around this point somewhere is where I started to really enjoy it, so that's a good sign. When I sat down to read this morning, I was not expecting to finish this book, but I did. I just didn't realize that there's this whole big section at the back of the book that is not the book. It's like the author's note, resources, discussion guide, things like that. Which is funny because I was reading the last chapter, unknowingly reading the last chapter, and in my head I was thinking, I don't understand how this book is going to keep going. Like this feels like the end, and it was the end. So that was funny. Honestly, this book didn't end up being as sad as I thought it was going to be. The beginning was way sadder than the rest of the book, I feel like. I think that's just because the beginning of the book goes into a lot of detail, and that's what I find hard to read and sad to read. And then that's also why I was kind of comparing it to A Little Life, and it does not end up being like A Little Life at all. So that comparison was wrong. And honestly, at this point, I have no idea what I'm going to rate this book. I'm very, very on the fence about which way I want to rate it, because I enjoyed it, I didn't love it, and I didn't hate it, but I don't know, it's just a weird feeling because at some points I was really enjoying it, at some points I just didn't like it. So I don't know. I don't think my rating is going to end up being very high for this book, but I want to think on it a little bit more because I literally just finished it like 5 minutes ago. This book is definitely very sad, although in the beginning of the book I was expecting this book to wreck me. I thought it would tear me apart. I thought I would be bawling my eyes out, and it was definitely sad, but I just didn't get to that point with this book. But I have like 5 more minutes until I need to log on for work, so I'm definitely going to start my next book this morning. And then also something I really appreciate is that the author put a whole page of resources in the back of the book. But next I'm going to read If He Had Been With Me. I feel like this is the book whenever you ask someone, hey, what's a really sad book that I can read? I feel like they're either going to give you this book or A Little Light, but I'm very excited to read this one, but at the same time a little bit scared because I feel like it's going to break me apart, but maybe that's what I need from this book. So I'm gonna go start this book and I'll give you a little bit of a better synopsis once I'm a couple pages into it, because as of right now all I know is that there's a relationship and they break up, and I guess that's the whole If He Had Been With Me kind of thing. I don't really know, but we're gonna go find out. Hello, it's much later. I have my book and I have my poppy and I'm having a grand old time. I've already gotten 65 pages into this book and it's a lot different than I expected it to be. I, for some reason, was opening this book and immediately expected to like feel like I was gonna cry. I don't know why that was my expectation, but it was. I'm glad it's not like that though. But basically so far we have Autumn, who is our main character, and she grew up being best friends with her next door neighbor, and they're like kind of like family friends as well because their parents are also best friends, but then they kind of just slowly drift apart, their lives go separate ways. And when I read this on the back, I remember thinking that I thought that they were dating, but they're not, but I assume something's going to happen there at some point. But also the first chapter of this book is a kind of like a flash forward moment, at least I assume it's a flash forward moment, because something happens and then all of a sudden like we don't go back to that, like it's just back to everyday normal life. it. So I assume it's a flash forward. It doesn't say, but it's giving that vibe, you know? So I'm excited to see how we get to that point. I do enjoy when a book starts with a flash forward moment. So definitely liking this book so far. We'll see if it ends up being a tearjerker. I feel like it could be since I'm already growing attached to Autumn, who's our main character. Also, so far I feel like this is a very character focused book and I do like books like that. So very excited for this one. I did just put some plumping lip gloss on, so I fear my lips are about to get really big and red and irritated. So we're gonna have to make this a quick update before they do that. I'm already almost halfway through this book. I might actually already be halfway through. Yeah, maybe I am actually halfway through. But I am eating up this book. I read so much of it yesterday, like way more than I was expecting to, because I was just really enjoying it. I'm really liking the characters, and I feel like that's really important in this book because I don't know if I mentioned this or not yesterday, but it seems to be very character focused. Like not a ton is happening, but I kind of like books like that. So I feel like if you're someone that doesn't love that, you might not like this book. But also since I am getting attached to them and I'm also like just really interested in like what's going on, I worry that whatever sad thing is about to happen, I'm going to get very upset by it. So this book definitely has the potential to make me cry, break me down, tear me into a million pieces. We'll have to see what it does. But at the same time, there's something that this main character is doing in regards to like thinking about her future, because they're in high school in this book, so she's kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do with the rest of her life, and she is letting other people's opinions drive what she wants to do. And I really hope that she changes her mind about that, because that part is driving me crazy. I'm like, girl, you only get one chance to do this, you know what I mean? Like you got to do what you want, not what someone else is pressuring you to do. So that's driving me a little bit crazy. Like every time it's brought up in the book, I wish I could talk to her and be like, girl, what are you doing? Like this is not a smart move for you at all. So that's driving me a little bit crazy, but I'm hoping she'll change her mind. But I'm gonna keep reading. When I'm filming this, it's my birthday weekend this weekend, so I don't know how much I will actually get to read this weekend, but I am hoping to finish this book pretty soon because it's pretty good so far. I'm really liking it. I'm definitely liking this better than Girl in Pieces, so I'm gonna go read as much as I can, and I probably won't talk to you until maybe tomorrow because we're doing my birthday dinner tonight with like a bunch of my friends, because I have like I have like 3 birthday celebrations this weekend, because I do one with my mom, I do one with my dad, and then obviously I do one with my friends, and then it's also my mom's birthday, so we are gonna celebrate her birthday as well. So that's literally 4 days of birthday celebrations. Just one of them is technically for her, but I think in the morning me and Jack are probably gonna do something alone to kind of celebrate my birthday. So it kind of feels like 4 days of my birthday, but I've always said my birthday and my mom's birthday kind of clashes together sometimes, but in like a good way, not in a way where it's like either of us are forgotten. It ends up just becoming an entire weekend of birthday celebrations, which I just think is so much fun. So we are in for some fun, exciting things, but also might not have a lot of time to read, and that's okay. Chapter 64, I predicted the entire thing. Guys, I'm not entirely convinced there's not something wrong with me, because why have I not cried yet in this video? I think I'm the problem, truly. I did finish If You Had Been With Me yesterday, and I really enjoyed this book. I think I'm gonna give it a 4-star. I loved how it was written. I loved the story, but I thought the ending was very predictable, so I'm not sure what people were crying about, because I kind of assumed that it would end the way it did. I mean, obviously there's little parts that I was surprised by, but I felt like the kind of flash forward moment in the beginning gave away the entire end of the book. So I feel like if it didn't have that in the beginning, I would not have guessed the ending of this book. I feel like I might have actually enjoyed this book just a little bit more, just because I knew what was coming at the end. So I wasn't surprised. I didn't cry. I thought it was sad, obviously, because it is sad. My camera battery died. But anyways, I was basically just saying that I really liked this book, but found the ending a little bit predictable, which is why I didn't cry or get outwardly emotional. Obviously, I thought it was sad. But we are starting the final book of this video, which is How to Walk Walk Away by Katherine Center, and I will say the beginning of this book has already made me a little sad. Again, no tears. I'm worried that I am getting a little bit heartless over here. So yeah, that's a concern I have. I have heard that this book is very sad, and it did start off pretty sad. Also like crazily entertaining. Skimming the back really quickly because I don't want to give anything away, but basically you have our main character Margaret. I think she just graduated college and has a job lined up that she's really excited about, and it says, then suddenly on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life, everything she worked for is taken away. And then it says, it does tell you that she ends up in the hospital. Her fiance Chip is wallowing in self-pity, simultaneously expecting to be forgiven. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of information in the back of this book. Like a lot of these things I haven't even gotten to. Like what I just read, I haven't even gotten to, and I'm already on page 42. So I'm not gonna tell you what that says because I feel like that kind of gives like a brief synopsis. She ends up in the hospital. Her fiance Chip is kind of going through some things as well. They're both going through it at the beginning of this book, and just everything that happens in the beginning of the book, I like literally was stopping myself from skimming because I was like, I need to know what happens. I need to know. So I like had to force myself to like slow down and actually sit and enjoy the book because I was just so invested in the beginning of the book. But I was like, Morgan, you need to slow down and enjoy the book or you're gonna regret it. So glad I did that, but I just was so into the beginning of this book. It was wild. But I did go into this book fully blind, so I had no idea how it was gonna happen. I actually thrifted this book and I literally just picked it up because Haley Pham talked about it a long time ago because she loves Katherine Center, and this is my first Katherine Center book. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually debating sitting and listening to a couple chapters this morning because it is Monday. I am working. Yesterday was my birthday, actually, which is why we didn't talk at all yesterday. I think we talked a little bit the day before, but I didn't talk at all yesterday because it was my birthday. I did get some reading in though, so that's exciting. But anyways, I do have to work today, so I'm thinking I might listen to a little bit of the audiobook while I work. Hello, it is already the next day. First, before I give you my update, I need to show you this shirt because I'm obsessed with it. Please, this is so cute. I got this for my birthday. I'm actually obsessed with it. I'm obsessed. Right now I'm wearing it with like brown sweatpants, but I'm so excited to wear this with little jean shorts in the summer and like sneakers, and I just love it so much. Anyway, I've gotten so far into this book. I was about to actually say I'm a little bit over halfway, but I'm definitely more than over halfway. I'm at page 182, and I didn't realize how far I got into this book because it looks like a healthily sized book, but then I guess my copy has just this giant like reading guide at the end of it because the book ends here. So I literally only have that little bit left, which is crazy to me. But yes, anyway, I'm at page 182. Obviously enjoying this book so much. If I wasn't, I don't think I could have read that much yesterday because I had a busy day, but I still managed to read a big old chunk of this book. But I will say I feel like there's truly not much I can say about this book because I don't want to spoil anything. I feel like this is one of those books where you kind of have to go in but knowing bare minimum and that's it. But obviously, like I said, I'm enjoying it so much, but there is one thing that bothers me is they talk a lot of like medical talk in this book, and that's just a personal preference that bothers me. And then also at the same time, the genre this book is under romance, at least when I Google it. I think it also says fiction under there, and I don't think I would go into this book expecting a romance because at this point it's not super romance heavy at all. Like I feel like the romance is taking a subplot. I feel like I've used this metaphor before, but we're driving like one of those vans and the romance is all the way in the back seat, and we're driving, we're in the front. The romance is a couple rows in the back, you know, like we're on a bus, we're on a triple decker and it's all the way in the back, you know what I mean? Like it's so far back there that I would not call this a romance by any means, but I can definitely see the romance aspects, and I feel like towards the end of the book we will get more of those aspects. Now, to connect it back to the sad part of this reading vlog, everything that happens in here is definitely very sad, but it's not sad to the point where I'm tearing up or crying sad, and I expected it to be a lot worse, and maybe it will get a lot worse because I still have a big chunk of the book left. But Haley Pham, when she read this book, I remember her saying like, don't read this book if you are in a bad spot in your life. Like go into this book when you're in a good spot in your life because it'll be too hard to read basically, which I don't know if I agree yet, but I will say a lot of this book has taken me by surprise. I had no idea that the book would end up being like this, especially just like reading the back of the book. No idea that it would be like this. I guess you do kind of get a little bit of like a hint that it could end up like this, but I had no idea. But also at the same time, I do like to go into my books a little bit blind, so that could be part of the reason. But I'm probably going to finish this book either today or tomorrow, most likely tomorrow because I have another busy day ahead of me, but we will find out how sad I end up thinking this book is. If I finally shed a tear in this video, I kind of hope I do, because at this point I feel a little bit like a robot. I'm a little bit concerned about myself, and I just worry I'm not in touch emotionally. Hopefully I can shed a tear today. Obviously laying in bed reading, about to go to sleep, but I only have a chapter and the epilogue left, so I definitely think I'm going to finish this book tonight. But also it has taken such a turn, and I'm just kind of shocked where things have gone, so I have no idea how it's going to end so quickly. But at the same time, I'm kind of scared for how it's going to end, just because everyone said it's super sad. And so far it has been pretty sad, but not incredibly sad to where I would pitch this book as a sad book, if that makes sense. So I worried something's coming for me. I finished How to Walk Away last night, and I have officially ended this video without a single tear being shed. Guys, be honest, am I soulless? Why did none of these books make me cry? I was actually expecting waterworks with every single one of these books, and I got it with none of them. But you know what? That's okay. I will say I did really like How to Walk Away. I think I'm actually gonna give this one a 4.5 star. It was so close to being a 5, but I don't think it gave me that 5-star feeling, but I might bump it up if I keep thinking about this book in the next couple of days, so we will see. But I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It didn't end how I was expecting it to. I kept having a bunch of theories on what I thought was going to happen, and they were all very wrong. Like, not even close to how this book ended. But I do like how it ended. The epilogue I feel like I could have done without, but honestly sometimes in books that are a little bit more romancy, because I don't want to call this a romance book, but sometimes books like this, the epilogue is just kind of a little bit unnecessary to me. But I guess some people enjoy seeing like years in the future and like what happens. But very much enjoyed this one. Definitely a favorite from this video, and I'm actually shocked I didn't cry because I was expecting this one to rip me apart. It was pretty sad, but it also had like this underlying feeling of hope, and I was just rooting for our main character so much, so I did really enjoy this one. And then I also read If He Had Been With Me and Girl in Pieces. I think I talked more about my rating for If He Had Been With Me. I believe this one is a 4-star. The only thing holding this one back was that I just found it a little bit predictable. Like, I knew how the book was going to end, and I feel like since I knew how the book was going to end, I didn't find it that upsetting. It just kind of fell a little bit surface level just because I guessed the ending, which kind of sucked because I feel like this had a lot of potential. And then I unfortunately started the video off with Girl in Pieces. I thought I was really going to like this book, but I settled on a 3-star for this book because I know in the beginning I was very iffy on what I was going to rate this, but 3-star feels like the correct rating for this one. It's got an interesting storyline. I enjoyed our characters. I just wasn't obsessed with it. I liked the writing and all of that, but there was just something missing from this book. I'm not entirely sure what, but I needed more from this book and it just didn't give me enough. Unfortunately, this one fell a little bit flat for me, but we did still find some pretty good books in this video, even though I didn't shed a tear. A little bit worried about that. I promise I'm not heartless. Normally books make me cry, so I'm not sure what happened, but I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what else you want to see from me. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!